it's Shelby here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you all are with me today. Today's video is going to be my end of September wrap up. This is going to be all the books that I read in the latter half of September. Before we get into those, if I sound weird to my ears, I sound weird. I'm very congested. I have a cold and it sucks. So I might sound a little bit weird, but anyway, yeah, so I did pretty good for the end half of September. I read 10 books in the end half of September, and I think that will put my total for September at 17 books. So pretty good. But here again, I read a ton of books that I was just kind of meh, that I didn't really care for. I'm really like, it's making me kind of sad because everything that I've been picking up so far, like nothing has wowed me. Everything's just like middle road or like blah. So I'm just like craving like something that just like hooks me like so much. And that I love, that it's gonna be a 5-star read, and I haven't found that. So anyway, we're gonna get right into all the books that I read. First one is gonna be Hot Vampire Next Door Season 1 by Nikki Crowe. This is a paranormal romance. It's called Season 1, and then I read Season 2 as well, because these were released on Kindle Vella, which is like, there's like a new chapter that releases like every so often. I'm not a really big fan of that because it's like serials, and I would rather just have the whole thing all at once. Anyway, so this is about our heroine, and she lives next door to a vampire. And her whole family has known about vampires. Her family is actually pledged to a vampire clan that they will like give their blood to this clan and like get protection and blah blah blah. And her family, the clan that they're pledged with is actually somebody different from the neighbor that she has. And her neighbor is kind of an asshole, but they have this like sexual chemistry. Like she's always watching, like he like taunts her and like gets naked in front of the window in front of her. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. I give this 3.5 stars. This was fine. I kind of like the concept of it, but the execution maybe could have been a little bit better. The steam on this was more like, I would consider more medium steam. But yeah. Then right after that, then I read Hot Vampire Next Door Season 2, just to kind of get more into the story, because it does kind of end on a little bit of a cliffhanger. We realize that our heroine is special to these vampires. And you, in this one, find out a little bit more about why and her backstory, and then we also delve a little bit more into their relationship with the next door neighbor guy. This one I gave a 3. I started to lose interest in this one, so I have not continued on past this. This one is a little bit more steamy. I would consider this more like medium high steam. Then I read Little Dove by Layla Frost. This one I was expecting to be a like 4 or 5-star book because it's an age gap, and I love age gap. There's some daddy kink in this too. There's a little bit of dominance and submission in this, and it's also a ward kind of trope. So this is about our heroine. Her father owes a debt to this like very powerful man, and hasn't paid his debt, so that man is coming to collect and ends up killing him, but then doesn't realize that he has a 17-year-old daughter, so he decides to take her in and have her live at his house and just take care of her. She's basically his ward until she becomes 18, and then as soon as she turns 18, they start a relationship together. I gave this 2 stars. I was wanting to like this so much more than I did, and I really did not like it. I didn't really care for this because there was really no direction towards in this book. Like the first little bit you get, there's basically the story of like the background of like how they get together, but then after that there's like literally no plot to this. There's no direction, and it got very boring. I also didn't care for, you know, usually I really like the age gap trope, and especially if it's really taboo like this, where she's like 17 and then they finally get together when she's 18. But with this, it felt very much like he was grooming her, and I didn't really care for that, and I was so done with this. There are trigger warnings in this for death because, and then it doesn't ever actually explain, like, he seems very like mafia, but it doesn't ever actually say that he is, so I don't know if he's like mafia adjacent basically, but that's how he seems to kind of operate. It's very much like a mafia story. The steam on this is high, but yeah, I was not the biggest fan of this. Then I read A Witch Out of Time, which is the second book of the Yaga Riders series by Rochelle. I really like the first one, which if you aren't familiar with what that one is about, I talked about that in my beginning of the month wrap up, so you can check out that video. But basically this is like a Baba Yaga retelling with a reverse harem, Russian folklore kind of retelling stuff. This one is our heroine, she and one of her writers, her men that forms her harem, get captured by these bad guys, and they get separated from the other two guys that are with her. So it's them kind of trying to get the whole group back together. We also get a little bit more, like, our heroine has this a little bit more of a journey through her like backstory and to becoming like who she is today. I gave this one 3 stars. I didn't like this one as much as the first book. I honestly got really bored during this book. Steam on this was high. I just thought it was very boring. I didn't really care for like the whole backstory stuff because I was like, we're already here. I don't know. I felt like it got a little bit repetitive. And I didn't really care for all of them being apart for it either. So there's that. Then I read 11 Scenes, which is the second book in the 11 Hours series by Octavia Jensen. This is a novella. The first one in this I read a while ago, where these two characters are like got stuck in an elevator together. So this one is them, they're in a relationship and they're just exploring their chemistry together. I gave this one 3 stars, mostly because there's absolutely no plot to this whatsoever. Each chapter is basically just them exploring some type of kink that they are interested in doing with each other. So it's very much just a smut novella. So if you like those, you may want to check this out. I'm kind of meh on those. I would prefer to have at least some type of plot to my books. But there's like none, like whatsoever, none at all. I do like that this is very sex positive. I liked all the different introductions to all these different kinks that they did. And I like that they constantly brought up consent, like all throughout this entire novella. With each thing that they did, our hero was always checking in with our heroine and making sure that everything was okay, that he was okay to continue doing what they were doing. So I did really like that. And of course, steam on this is very high. Then I read Glitch by Briana Michaels. I picked this one up because a bunch of the Facebook groups that I'm in, that like I made a few like steamy romance Facebook groups, and I get a lot of books on my TBR from that. So a bunch of people on there were talking about this book and raving about it. This is basically like these two gamers. They are friends and they play together, but they've never actually like met face to face. And they both kind of have a crush on each other just from like their voice and like interacting with like gaming. So they do finally meet because our heroine has something wrong with her computer, and he owns like a gaming tech shop thing, so he is gonna fix it, and that's how they kind of meet, and they find out that they're really attracted to each other, and they start to kind of form a little bit of a relationship. I gave this 4 stars. I did really enjoy this. I like the steam on this. It was very high, very much a dirty talker. I think it would have been interesting to have listened to this on audio if this does have an audiobook. I'm not really sure. lots of dirty talk in this. There is trigger warnings for like a stalker kind of. It's kind of mild, but it is there. Basically, her ex-boyfriend is still obsessed with her and isn't leaving her alone. So they have to deal with that in this book. Then I read Curious by Just Savage. This is an interesting one. This is, again, more like novella length, I think. But this is about this girl, and she has a crush on this guy in high school. But he is already in a relationship and has a girlfriend. So she ends up getting a job at the country club where he works, and then the girlfriend, her parents own this country club, so she ends up getting a summer job there as a lifeguard so that she can spend more time with him. But in doing so, because she's so like obsessed with this guy and so upset that he's with this other girl, she starts becoming more obsessed with this other girl as well. At first it starts with like thinking how she wants to be her so that she can be with that guy, but then it morphs more into like she's so beautiful. So this turns into a kind of a menage kind of thing. This is an MFF story. There is more towards the end like a steamy scene involving the three of them, so I would consider this medium because it takes a lot of build up to get there, but I did really enjoy this. I gave this 4 stars. I'm kind of interested in reading more in this series, but then at the same time, like, there's a bunch of books in the series and it seems like it just gets more like drama filled as the story goes on. Like, I was reading like what the next ones were about, which is probably bad that I did that to myself because now I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to continue on. But this was really good and I really like this. I haven't read too many MFF storylines. I'm usually reading more MMF, but I did really enjoy this. Then I read Lark, which is the first book in the Lark duet by Emma Cole. Just right out of the get-go, I did not really care for this. This is about our heroine, and she gets kidnapped into becoming a sex slave, but she gets kidnapped with her roommate and her ex-boyfriend and her ex-boyfriend's partner, because her ex-boyfriend is an FBI agent and like his partner. So all 4 of them get kidnapped, and it turns out like the boyfriend and partner knew about this because they were trying to infiltrate this like sex slave training ring, whatever, and they just happened to be bystanders and get kidnapped too. I gave this 2 stars. I did not care for this. I may bump this down to a 1 star, but I did keep reading. There's basically no plot to this, again, which I didn't really care for. It needed to have a little bit more. The steam on this was very, very high. It was lots of graphic, explicit sex scenes. However, none of them are sexy in any means. I've read some other like captive kind of stories where the person that has gotten captured has like sex with like the captor kind of person, and it's like really taboo, and there's like that non-con dub-con kind of like element to it, but it's still pretty like steamy and like sexy. No, none of this was sexy. There's no romance to it, lots of like dubious consent things going on, but it was just like gross and horrifying. I did not care for this at all. Then I read The Lady by Golden Angel. This is a historical romance. This is part of like a series of books by different authors that sounds like it's kind of like Disney retelling-esque. So this is a retelling of Lady and the Tramp. We have our heroine, who is known as the Lady, and she is running away from she's in town for like the season to try to like find a husband and whatnot, but her person that's like her chaperone that she was staying with ends up going to labor and having to go out to the countryside. So then now she's with this other family, and they are not very nice to her. They tend to be more like abusive towards her. So she runs away into the streets, into more the shady part of town, and runs into the Tramp, who is very wealthy, runs like some gambling halls, does a lot of like shady kind of stuff, and they get together and form a relationship. I gave this 3.5 stars. There are parts of this, like, I'm back and forth on whether I like this or not. There is dubious consent in here, and there is dom DNS, like dom and sub, because Tramp is definitely more of a dom, and he kind of somewhat teaches Lady to be submissive towards him. I mostly just, I didn't really care for like how it was done. It was just not my cup of tea. So I mean, it's not that like the writing was bad or the plot was bad or anything like that. It was more just like because they do like puppy play kind of stuff, and I'm just like not the biggest fan of that, but I don't know, it is what it is. Steam on this is gonna be high. And then the last book that I read for the latter half of September is going to be Tempt Me. This is the first book in the Wolf Hotel series by K.A. Tucker. This is a contemporary romance about our heroine. Her fiance cheats on her, so she just wants to get away from her small town because everybody in her small town is like, oh, just forgive him and go back to him, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that. So she ends up getting a summer job at this new hotel that is opening up in Alaska. She wants just to be totally away from everybody, do something totally different. So she gets this job, and unknowingly she ends up meeting the owner of the hotel, and he's very much attracted to her, but then also kind of impressed by her. So he makes her his personal assistant. And they start to form a relationship. The steam on this is going to be high. There is a mild like age gap, so we also have this like workplace kind of romance. I gave this, I didn't write down what I gave this. I'm pretty sure I gave this 4 stars. I really liked the setup for this, and I liked the taboo nature of how our 2 characters get together. I really enjoyed this one. So there we go, guys. That is going to be all the books that I read for the latter half of September. I went through this really quickly because, like I said, I'm very congested and don't really feel great, and I'm trying to get this filmed while my kids are happy and occupied. But otherwise, let me know and comment down below what are some of the books that you read in September. What were your favorites? Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you like this video, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. I really appreciate it. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.